You know that feeling when you walk away from a conversation and think, ugh, I could have handled that better.
Oh, definitely. Like maybe it was a tricky discussion at work or, a disagreement with a friend.
Exactly. Or just feeling like you didn't quite get your point across. We all have those moments, right? Where things just fall a bit flat.
Yeah, those interactions that just don't quite land the way you hoped.
Wouldn't it be
Oh.
like incredibly useful to have a set of principles, almost like a toolkit, but timeless,
Mm.
to navigate all that human interaction stuff more effectively?
That's really the core question, isn't it? Our relationships, they're kind of the foundation for everything, personal, professional,
Totally.
and getting better at navigating them with more understanding, more finesse, that's a skill that really pays off.
And that is precisely why we're doing this deep dive today into a book that's been, well, a cornerstone for human relations for almost a century now.
Right.
Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People,
Ah, the classic.
published way back in 1937. I mean, imagine. The world was so different then.
It's wild. And yet, the advice, the core ideas, they still resonate so strongly today.
It's actually pretty remarkable. And the story behind it, the first print run was, what, just a few thousand copies?
Yeah, really modest. Apparently, Carnegie himself and the publisher, they didn't quite grasp what they had on their hands.
Its success, its staying power, it just speaks volumes about how timeless these principles really are for connecting with people.
It really does.
So for you listening right now, maybe you're prepping for a big meeting or trying to lead your team better, or honestly, just wanting to build stronger connections day to day,
Uh-huh.
this deep dive is for you. We're going to try and pull out the core principles, the actionable stuff from Carnegie's work.
Kind of a shortcut, right? To understanding how to build those better relationships,
Yeah,
influence people positively, become more well-liked.
exactly. Skills that are valuable everywhere. And the goal is to get that practical knowledge without, making it feel overwhelming.
Right. So our mission today is really to distill that practical essence. We'll kick off with the fundamental techniques for just handling interactions.
Okay,
Then look at the 6 ways Carnegie suggests to become more likable.
gotcha.
After that, strategies for winning people over to your way of thinking.
Important stuff.
And finally, touch on some leadership principles for making positive changes. And we'll try to use plenty of examples from the book, draw out real-life lessons.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Part 1, fundamental techniques in handling people.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 1 has that memorable title, If You Want to Gather Honey, Don't Kick Over the Beehive.
Aha. Great title.
What's the main idea there?
Well, fundamentally, it's a really strong message about how useless, even counterproductive, criticism, condemnation, and complaining usually are.
Okay.
Carnegie's point is, when you criticize someone, their immediate reaction is defensiveness.
Right.
Uh-huh. Instinctively. It wounds their pride, they feel attacked, and it just breeds resentment. And crucially, it almost never leads to the actual lasting change you were probably hoping for.
Right. You might get compliance in the moment, but not real change.
Exactly. And the book uses that really stark example of Two Gun Crowley, the killer.
Yeah, that one stands out.
Here's this notorious criminal responsible for terrible things, but even when he's cornered, about to die, he still sees himself as basically kind, someone who wouldn't hurt a fly.
Wow.
It just highlights that fundamental human thing. We almost never see ourselves as being in the wrong. So direct criticism, it just bounces off that self-perception.
People rationalize.
Always. Even when objectively they seem completely wrong. So blame is just ineffective for changing minds.
And Carnegie brings in some psychology too, right? It's not just anecdotes.
Oh yeah, definitely. He talks about B.F. Skinner's work on reinforcement.
Okay.
Skinner showed pretty clearly with animals and humans that rewarding good behavior works way better for learning and long-term change than punishing bad behavior.
Right. Positive reinforcement.
Exactly. Criticism is like punishment. It might stop the behavior for a bit, maybe out of fear, but it doesn't build understanding or a desire to change.
And that Hans Lee quote.
Yeah. As much as we thirst for approval, we dread condemnation. It's like we're hardwired to seek validation and avoid being put down. Criticism triggers that avoidance.
Makes sense. There's also that very practical example of George B. Johnston, the safety guy with the hard hats.
Oh, that's a perfect illustration. Johnston initially just laid down the law, wear your hard hats. It's the rule.
The authority approach.
Right. And what happened? People put them on when he was looking.
And took him off when he wasn't.
Exactly. It shows that just forcing a rule with criticism doesn't create that internal buy-in. No real commitment.
And then the chapter talks about Abraham Lincoln's own journey with criticism, which I found really fascinating.
Lincoln's evolution on this is incredibly insightful, yeah. Apparently, when he was younger, he was actually quite prone to sharp criticism, even public ridicule sometimes. Yeah, and it sometimes backfired, damaged relationships. But as he got older, especially during the immense stress of the Civil War, he really developed this profound understanding of empathy and the power of holding back, restraint.
That story about the letter he wrote to General Meade after Gettysburg that he never sent.
Oh, that's such a powerful example of his wisdom. He was, understandably, furious that Meade hadn't pursued Lee's army more aggressively.
Right, a potentially war-ending moment.
Exactly. So he wrote this blistering letter, really letting Meade have it, but then he stopped.
He paused.
He thought about it. He considered Meade's position, the exhausted troops, the horror of the battle they'd just survived. And he realized sending that letter, while maybe satisfying for him in the moment,
Would just crushed Meade.
right, demoralized him, created resentment, maybe even hurt his ability to lead later. So Lincoln chose understanding over criticism. Remarkable self-control.
So for the listener, the practical takeaway from this first chapter is,
It's really about awareness. Notice that knee-jerk reaction when you feel like criticizing or complaining. Before you act on it, just pause.
think about the likely results.
Yeah. Will this actually help? Or will it just make things worse, create bad feelings? Often, like Lincoln showed, trying to understand the other person's perspective first is way more effective.
Okay, good first principle. Let's move to chapter 2, the big secret of dealing with people. Sounds intriguing. What's the secret?
The big secret is the power of giving honest and sincere appreciation.
Okay, appreciation.
Carnegie argues that deep down, maybe the deepest human drive is the desire to feel important, to be valued. And when we genuinely acknowledge someone's worth, appreciate something they've done or who they are, we tap right into that fundamental need, positively.
The book has that kind of sad, funny story about the father who only commented on his wife's cooking when she served him A.
Right. It's a bit dark, but it highlights something really common, doesn't it? We tend to take good things for granted.
We notice the exceptions, the problems.
Exactly. We only speak up when something's wrong. That story and the mention of the study about runaway wives citing lack of appreciation,
Yeah, that was striking.
it just underlines how vital feeling valued really is, especially in our close relationships.
But it's not always about big gestures, is it? That example of the man whose wife asked for criticism, but instead he sent roses and a loving note.
Precisely. Sometimes the small, sincere things have the biggest impact. He chose appreciation and acceptance over finding fault, even when invited to.
And that changed things.
It led to a really positive shift in their relationship, yeah.
Now, Carnegie makes a really crucial distinction here between genuine appreciation and just flattery.
Oh, absolutely vital. That's key. Flattery is superficial, right? It's usually insincere, often self-serving. You're trying to get something.
And people often see through it.
Especially intelligent people, yeah. Genuine appreciation, though, that comes from the heart. It's specific, it's authentic. You actually mean it.
He mentions Disraeli flattering Queen Victoria, but warns against it generally.
Right. Disraeli might have been a master manipulator, but for most of us, flattery is like counterfeit currency. It can do more harm than good. Stick to the real thing.
And that, Ralph Waldo Emerson, quote, fits perfectly here. Every man I meet is my superior in some way. In that, I learn of him.
Love that quote. It encourages humility, doesn't it? And openness. If you go into every interaction looking for something to genuinely admire or learn,
You'll probably find it.
you almost certainly will, and then you have something real to appreciate.
So for our listeners, the actionable step for this big secret is,
The challenge is, today, make a conscious effort. Find at least one person you interact with. Notice something you genuinely appreciate about them. Could be anything, their effort, their kindness, a skill. And tell them directly, sincerely, and just observe their reaction. See how it feels for both of you. It can be surprisingly powerful.
Okay, principle 2, sincere appreciation. Now, chapter 3 has another profound title. He who can do this has the whole world with him. He who cannot walks a lonely way. What's the
This is the absolutely critical skill of arousing in the other person an eager want.
arousing and eager want?
Okay. Carnegie's core argument here is that the only way to reliably influence people is to talk about what they want and show them how to get it through what you're suggesting.
Shift the focus from me to them.
Entirely. It's about understanding and addressing their desires, their motivations.
That classic story about Emerson and his son trying to get the calf into the barn. really nails this, doesn't it?
It's perfect. So simple, but so insightful. Emerson and his son are focused only on their goal. Get the calf in the barn. They use force, pushing, pulling.
And the calf resists.
Of course. The calf wants to stay in the pasture. Its desire is totally different. Then the housemaid comes along.
And she gets it.
She intuitively understands the calves want the comfort of its mother, basically. So she lets it suck her finger, fulfills that immediate need, and gently leads it right in, no force needed.
Because she appealed to the calf's want.
Exactly. She aligned with its motivation.
And Harry Overstreet's quote reinforces this.
Yeah, from influencing human behavior. Action springs out of what we fundamentally desire. First, arouse in the other person an ego want. It's the starting point for influence.
Understand their drive first.
Before you even think about your own goal.
Carnegie points out that Andrew Carnegie, his namesake, got this early on, despite not having much formal education.
Absolutely. Andrew Carnegie's incredible success was built on understanding what made people tick, his workers, his partners, everyone. He knew appealing to their self-interest was key.
The book gives that real-world business example, negotiating the rent increase.
Yeah, that's a great practical application. Instead of just saying, I don't want to pay more rent, which is about his want,
Right.
the author analyzed the hotel manager's wants. Profit, keeping rooms full, the hotel's reputation.
So he framed his argument around those things.
Exactly. He showed how a smaller increase, or maybe none, would actually help the manager achieve his goals. And it worked. He got a better deal.
And then there are those cringe-worthy negative examples, the letters that just completely miss the mark.
Oh, yeah. Those are painful, but useful. The radio department guy, the job applicant, they're totally self-absorbed.
All about me, me, me.
Right. They completely ignore what the recipient might want or care about. The tone is demanding or just irrelevant. They basically guarantee a no.
But then you see the contrast with Barbara Anderson's job application letter.
Night and day, isn't it? Her letter is all about, here's how I can help you at the bank. Here's how my skills meet your needs.
Focused entirely on the bank's wants.
Which, naturally, makes them much more interested in talking to her.
The chapter uses other examples too, right?
Yeah.
Motivating the service station owner, even helping with bedwetting.
Yeah, it shows how universal this is. The service station owner was motivated by his desire for recognition in his club.
His want.
The parents helped their son by focusing on his wants. Wanting pajamas like dad, having his own bed. Not punishment, but aligning with his desires.
Even the kid making cereal.
Right. The little girl didn't want to eat, but she did want to feel important and express herself. Letting her help make it tapped into that want.
So for the listener, putting this into practice means
Before your next persuasive conversation, stop. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Ask, what do they really want here? What are their needs, goals, worries?
see it from their side.
Then frame your request, your idea, in a way that clearly shows how it helps them get what they want. That shift is, well, it's huge.
Okay, powerful stuff. We got the fundamental techniques. Now let's dig into part 2. 6 ways to make people like you. Chapter 1 is, do this and you'll be welcome anywhere. What's the magic saying?
Yeah, this is surprisingly simple, but maybe not easy. Become genuinely interested in other people.
Genuinely interested.
Yeah, not faking it.
Yeah.
Showing sincere curiosity, real concern for others. Carnegie says it's a cornerstone for building positive connections. Makes you someone people want to be around.
That story about his dog, Tippy, is pretty charming and makes the point well.
Doesn't it? Tippy, just being a dog, wagging his tail, genuinely thrilled to see people. Made more friends in 2 months than Carnegie did in 2 years trying to get people interested in him.
Shows where the focus should be.
Outward, not inward, absolutely.
And Howard Thurston, the magician, his interest wasn't faked either.
Right. His success wasn't just tricks. He had this deep, real appreciation for his audience. He didn't see them as suckers like some performers did.
He saw them as people giving him their time.
Exactly, and enabling his life. So he genuinely wanted to give them his best out of gratitude and interest.
The sales story, Edward Sykes Jr., that shows how interest in maybe less important people pays off.
That's a beautiful example. He chatted with the soda clerk, the sales clerk, showed real interest in them as people before even talking to the boss.
Built up some goodwill.
Yeah, a little reservoir of it. And later, when the owner were difficult, that goodwill actually helped him keep the account. Everyone likes to be seen, valued.
Even really busy famous people respond to genuine interest, like the authors who helped with Carnegie's writing course.
Right. By showing sincere admiration for their work and real interest in their advice, they got these top authors involved. Even famous people appreciate genuine recognition.
Madeline Rosedale's letter praising the bank staff. That highlights the customer service angle.
Yeah, it shows customers value more than just efficiency. That feeling that the staff genuinely care, that creates loyalty.
And C.M. Naffel, the fuel salesman who couldn't sell to the chain stores.
Until he stopped pushing his product and started showing interest in their perspective, right? He asked for their help with a debate topic related to their business.
Changed the dynamic completely.
Turned it from a sales pitch into a conversation, built rapport, and then he got the business.
So the practical step for listeners from this chapter.
Next conversation you have, make a real effort. Be genuinely interested. Ask thoughtful questions about them, their work, their hobbies, their opinions. And then, this is key, really listen.
Actively listen.
Yeah. Show you're engaged. They'll likely open up more, feel more connected to you, builds that positive foundation.
Okay, great. Chapter 2 of Part 2. A simple way to make a good first impression. What's this simple trick?
It's maybe the simplest, smile.
Smile.
Well, a genuine smile. Carnegie stresses its immediate positive power. It makes people feel welcome, more comfortable right off the bat.
The comparison to dogs again, how they greet us enthusiastically.
It's a great analogy. That open, happy expression dogs have, we respond warmly to it instinctively. A real human smile does much the same thing, non-verbally.
Friendliness, approachability.
Without saying a word. And think about a baby smiling in, say, a tense waiting room.
Yeah, it cuts through the tension.
Subtly diffuses it, creates warmth, it's universal.
But crucially, it has to be sincere, right?
Wow.
Not a fake grin.
Oh, absolutely. Carnegie's clear on that. An insincere smile feels, well, creepy sometimes, doesn't it?
It's off-putting.
The smile he means is the one that comes from inside. Genuine warmth, real friendliness.
Professor McConnell's view on smiling is interesting. It makes people better managers, teachers, parents.
Yeah, his point is that smiling often signals encouragement, positivity, and encouragement works better than punishment for motivating people, whether they're employees, students, or your own kids.
The hiring story with Robert Cryer, the guy got the job because the interviewer sounded welcoming on the phone.
Yeah, it shows that even if you can't see the smile, the warmth it generates comes through in your tone. It created a welcoming vibe that made the candidate choose that company.
And the stockbroker who consciously decided to smile more.
That's a powerful story of personal transformation. He started smiling at everyone, and his whole environment changed. Less friction, easier resolutions, even better business results.
Changed his internal state too, maybe.
Seems like it, which leads to that William James idea the book mentions.
Act cheerful to become cheerful.
Sort of, yeah. Act as if you are cheerful, and it can actually help you feel that way. Our actions can influence our feelings.
And the idea that happiness is more internal than external.
Right. It's not just about circumstances. Our attitude, how we interpret things, that's huge. Happy peasants, unhappy millionaires, it's about the inner state.
Control your thoughts, control your happiness.
That's the gist. And Senora Gonzalez, who overcame loneliness at work just by smiling and initiating contact.
Shows how it breaks down barriers.
Exactly. A simple, proactive, welcoming gesture. It invites connection.
And that lovely description. A smile enriches the receiver without impoverishing the giver.
Beautifully put. It's a gift that costs nothing but creates so much goodwill.
So the action for listeners.
Just try it. Make a conscious effort today. Smile more. At colleagues, at strangers, on the phone. Notice the reactions. Notice how you feel. It's a small thing with potentially big results.
Okay, moving into Chapter 3 of Part 2. If you don't do this, you are headed for trouble. Sounds serious. What must we do?
This one is about remembering and using people's names.
Wow, names. Crucial.
Absolutely crucial. Carnegie calls a person's name the sweetest and most important sound in any language to that person. It's tied directly to their identity, their sense of self.
Jim Farley's legendary ability with names comes up here, right? Helping FDR.
Yeah, Farley was apparently incredible. He didn't just remember the name, but details family, job, politics, and he used that info.
Made people feel seen.
And incredibly important. That builds serious loyalty, especially in politics.
And Carnegie says, remembering a name is a compliment, but forgetting it or misspelling it.
Big trouble. Yeah, it feels like disrespect, like you don't care enough to get it right, even if it's an honest mistake. Remember the angry Parisian bank manager whose name is misspelled?
Ouch. Yeah, people take your names very personally.
Deeply. Andrew Carnegie apparently understood this even as a kid, the story with the rabbits.
Right, he used the boy's pride in his name associated with the rabbits to get cooperation.
Clever. Even back then. And later in that big meeting with Pullman.
He kept using Pullman's name.
which helped create a more collaborative vibe, less confrontational, and a potentially tense situation. Little touches matter.
And think about buildings named after donors, church windows.
Exactly. People want their names remembered, associated with something lasting. It shows how much significance we attach to them.
The book pushes back on the "I'm too busy" excuse for forgetting names. Cites FDR again.
Right. If the president, with everything on his plate, could remember the names of mechanics,
Then maybe busyness isn't the real reason.
it's often about priority, right? Making the effort because connecting with the person matters. That W.F. Chamberlain story about FDR using his name makes it feel very real.
And that political maxim. To recall a voter's name is statesmanship. To forget it is oblivion.
Powerful, isn't it? Applies way beyond politics too. Business, social life. Being remembered counts.
Napoleon even had techniques for memorizing names.
He knew its strategic value, writing it down, focusing, destroying the paper, engaging multiple senses to lock it in.
Emerson again. Good manners are made up of petty sacrifices. Remembering names fits that.
It's a small effort, a small sacrifice of attention, but it signals respect and good manners.
And the cafeteria example, Ken Nottingham using the server's name.
Perfect everyday illustration. Transforms a transaction into a human interaction just by using a name. Creates warmth.
So the practical advice for listeners struggling with names.
Make it a conscious goal. When you meet someone new, focus. Repeat the name back. Maybe connect it to something memorable about them. Use it soon after.
Practice and concentration.
Yeah, it takes effort, especially at first, but it's a skill you can definitely improve. And the payoff in relationships is worth it.
Okay, Chapter 4, Part 2. An easy way to become a good conversationalist. What's his easy way?
Be a good listener and encourage others to talk about themselves.
Sounds almost too simple again.
It does, but think about it. Who are people most interested in?
Themselves. Usually.
Overwhelmingly. So tap into that. Carnegie learned this at that bridge party, remember?
Where he barely spoke but was called a great conversationalist.
Exactly. Because he listened intently while the woman talked about her travels, he showed genuine interest in her story.
Made her feel heard.
Which is incredibly flattering. Like Charles Eliot from Harvard said, giving someone your exclusive attention. Nothing's more flattering than that.
The troubleshooter example is amazing, listening for hours to solve a complaint.
Extraordinary patience, but it worked. By letting the customer vent completely, feel totally heard, he diffused all the anger.
Turned an enemy into a friend, basically.
And Mr. Detmer resolving the bill dispute by listening and empathizing.
Same principle. Acknowledge the other person's viewpoint, didn't just argue.
It creates understanding, opens the door to solutions.
And Carnegie's own self-education relied heavily on listening, right? Writing to famous people.
Yeah, he didn't just write to them. He listened to their responses, learned from their experiences. It gave him confidence, vision. Listening is learning.
The book drives home that point. People care way more about their toothache than a famine killing millions elsewhere.
It's stark, but it highlights that inherent self-focus. Our own stuff feels immediate, important. Keep that in mind when you talk to people.
So the practical takeaway for becoming a better conversationalist.
In your next chat, focus on listening more than talking. Ask open-ended questions. How did you feel about that? What was that like? Tell me more about.
Get them talking about themselves.
And give them your full attention. Put your phone away. Lean in. Nod. Show you're tracking. You'll likely find the conversation flows better and the connection feels stronger.
All right, Chapter 5 of Part 2. How to interest people. How do we do that?
Talk in terms of the other person's interests.
Find out what they care about and talk about that.
Exactly. When the conversation revolves around their passions, their concerns, they're naturally going to be more engaged, more interested.
Like Teddy Roosevelt, prepping for visitors by reading up on their hobbies or fields.
What an amazing example of commitment. He went out of his way to meet people on their ground, talk about what mattered to them. That builds incredible rapport.
William Lyon Phelps's aunt explaining why the guy talked about boats.
Because his guest was interested in boats. He wanted to be agreeable, make the guest feel comfortable. It's good social grace.
Even if it's not your passion.
Showing interest in theirs is key, like Edward Chalif needing that favor from the president.
Started by asking about the framed $1 million check.
Smart move. It was clearly important to the president. Let him talk about it, feel good, then make the request. Warmed him up first.
And the bread salesman. 4 years of failure.
Until he found out the hotel manager was obsessed with the Greeters Society.
Talked about that instead of bread.
And boom! Built connection, finally got the business. It wasn't about the bread initially, it was about the relationship, built on shared interest, or interest in his interest.
Edward Harriman landing the job by researching the tycoon R.J. Funkhauser's interests.
Another strategic example. Knew the guy was hard to reach, so he found in Funkhauser's specific interests and focused the conversation there. Preparation matters.
Howard Hersig applying this in employee communications.
Found it made his work better and enriched him personally by learning from others' perspectives. It's a win-win.
So the action step for listeners.
Before you meet someone important or have a key conversation, do a little digging if you can. What are they interested in? What do they care about? Then steer the conversation that way.
Make it about them.
You'll find they're much more receptive, much more engaged.
Okay, last chapter of part 2, chapter 6. How to make people like you instantly. Instantly. What's the secret?
Make the other person feel important, and crucially, do it sincerely.
Sincerity again. That keeps coming up.
It's the bedrock. People crave feeling valued, significant. When you genuinely fulfill that need, it creates an immediate positive connection.
That little story about Carnegie complimenting the man's hair.
Yeah, simple, sincere compliment. Made the guy feel good, noticed. And naturally, he felt warmer towards Carnegie. Small things count.
But it can't be selfish, right?
Oh,
Not done to get something back.
Absolutely not. If you're trying to manipulate, it usually shows. Carnegie warns against that contemptible selfishness. Give appreciation freely.
Emerson's quote again. Every man I meet is my superior in some way.
It's about humility, right? Look for the good, the admirable, the thing you can learn from everyone. Then you can genuinely make them feel important because you see their importance.
And the warning about people with little achievement often having the most pride.
Yeah, a reminder that arrogance pushes people away. Humility and genuine appreciation draw people in.
The real-life stories here are powerful. The aunt giving away her prized Packard.
Because her nephew genuinely appreciated it, made her feel appreciated when she felt lonely and overlooked. It met a deep need for her.
And the dog breeder giving away a valuable puppy.
Because Carnegie showed sincere admiration for his passion, his hobby, made the judge feel important for his expertise. Connection led to generosity.
And the George Eastman story securing the chair order by admiring the office.
Masterclass. James Adamson didn't barge in selling. He admired the office, asked about Eastman's history, showed genuine interest in him and his achievements.
Made Eastman feel important.
Exactly. Built rapport, created a positive feeling before talking business, and it sealed the deal.
So it boils down to sincere appreciation, making people feel valued.
That's the essence of instant likability, according to Carnegie.
The practical takeaway.
Look for opportunities every day to sincerely make people feel important. Notice their efforts, praise their skills, acknowledge their contributions genuinely. It's about lifting others up.
Okay, we've covered a lot there in parts 1 and 2. Now let's jump ahead to part 4, which is all about leadership. Be a leader. How to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment. Big topic. Chapter 1 is, if you must find fault, this is the way to begin.
How should we begin?
Begin with praise and honest appreciation.
The praise sandwich approach?
Sort of, but you have to be careful. The idea is to soften the criticism, make the person more receptive before you point out the problem. Start on a positive, appreciative note.
Like Charles Schwab finding guys smoking under a no smoking sign.
Yeah, great example. He didn't yell or reprimand. He handed them cigars, said he'd appreciate it if they smoked them outside.
Positive gesture first, then the request. No direct criticism.
Exactly, disarming. But Carnegie warns about the word but.
The dreaded but. You did great, BUT. Right, that but often negates all the praise that came before it. Makes it feel insincere, like just a setup for the criticism.
So what's the alternative?
Use and instead. Connect the praise with the area for improvement. Like, we're really proud of you, Johnny, for raising your grades. And by continuing those efforts, your algebra can be right up there too.
Feels more encouraging, less like a criticism.
It frames it as building on success rather than focusing on failure.
Sergeant Kaiser getting soldiers' haircuts indirectly.
Another clever example. Complimented them as leaders, suggested leaders should set an example, maybe check the mirror. They got the hint without feeling ordered or criticized.
And Lyman Abbott's wife and his poor sermon.
Instead of saying, that was terrible, she could have gently praised his effort and suggested focusing on a more natural delivery next time, kinder and probably more effective.
So, takeaway. Always start with sincere praise before you have to address a problem.
Set a positive, receptive tone first, absolutely.
Okay, chapter 2. How to criticize and not be hated for it. The secret here.
Call attention to people's mistakes indirectly.
Be subtle about it.
Yeah. Avoid the direct confrontation if possible. Maybe use hints, questions, or frame it in a less personal way.
Carnegie mentions thinking about his own mistakes before criticizing his niece, Josephine.
Right. Remembering his own learning curve, her lack of experience, made him approach it more gently, more understandingly, indirectly acknowledging shared fallibility.
The story about Kaiser Wilhelm's blunders and von Bülow's attempt to manage him.
That highlights a failure of this. Von Bülow apparently praised the Kaiser, but then delivered the criticism too bluntly. And crucially, he didn't really humble himself first.
Didn't soften it enough.
Or didn't establish that sense of we're in this together enough. With someone that prideful, starting by acknowledging your own potential shortcomings and their strength might have worked better. Humility plus praise can disarm even difficult people.
So the practical tip is to find subtle ways, questions maybe.
Questions can work well. Have you considered trying it this way? Or sharing a related mistake you made first can soften the criticism of their error. Less like an accusation.
Leads perfectly into Chapter 3. Talk about your own mistakes first.
Exactly. This builds directly on the indirect approach. Before you criticize someone else, admit your own faults or errors, especially similar ones.
Like Carnegie did with Josephine. I know I've made similar errors.
Yeah, it immediately changes the dynamic. It says, I'm not perfect either. We all mess up. Let's figure this out. Makes the other person way less defensive.
The office manager who kept taking responsibility for a mistake.
Even when others might have been partly to blame. By owning it, he diffused tension, showed leadership, and actually earned his boss's respect. Took the heat off everyone else.
And the father who reconciled with his son by admitting his own wrongdoing first.
Powerful example. Inspired by this principle, he finally owned his part in their estrangement. That humility opened the door to forgiveness.
Albert Hubbard's gracious replies to critics.
Same idea. Admitted his own fallibility freely, turned potential enemies into friends because he didn't get defensive. He agreed with the criticism where possible.
That proverb, by fighting, you never get enough, but by yielding, you get more than you expected.
Fits perfectly. Yielding, admitting your own part, often gets you further than digging in your heels.
So the takeaway is, be willing to share your own mistakes before pointing out theirs.
Levels the playing field, shows humility, makes feedback much easier to hear.
Okay, Chapter 4. No one likes to take orders. True enough. What's the alternative?
Ask questions instead of giving direct orders.
Frame it as a question.
Yeah. Could we try this? Or what do you think about doing it this way? People are much more likely to accept an idea and follow through on it if they feel they had a part in it.
Like they discovered it themselves.
Exactly. It fosters cooperation, not resentment. Think about Adolf Seitz, the sales manager.
Who asked his team what they expected from him and what he could expect from them.
Right. Instead of just telling them what to do, he made it a collaborative discussion. Gave them ownership of the standards, the goals. Much more motivating.
And that Lao Tzu quote about rivers and seas keeping below the streams.
Beautiful wisdom. The leader who puts themselves below others, figuratively speaking, gains their respect and homage. Asking questions instead of commanding is a way of doing that.
So, the practical advice. Frame requests as questions whenever possible.
Encourage cooperation. Avoid that feeling of being dictated to. It respects their autonomy.
Chapter 5. Let the other person save face. This feels really important.
Oh, incredibly important, especially when someone has made a mistake or is being corrected or even let go. Humiliating someone is always destructive.
Even if the criticism is justified.
Even then, the sting of being publicly shamed or having your dignity trampled on is immense. A little consideration for their feelings, allowing them to maintain some self-respect, goes a long way.
Marshall Granger, handling the seasonal layoffs with sensitivity.
Yeah, recognizing that how you let someone go matters. Treating them with dignity, acknowledging their contributions, helps them save face during a difficult time.
So the takeaway is just be mindful. Think about their self-esteem.
Absolutely. Before you act or speak, especially in a corrective situation, ask yourself, how can I handle this in a way that respects their dignity and avoids unnecessary humiliation? Preserve their face.
Okay, Chapter 6. How to spur people on to success. How do we do that?
Use encouragement. Praise the slightest improvement. Make any fault seem easy to correct.
Focus on the positive. Build confidence.
Exactly. Like Pete Barlow training his dog's immediate praise for even tiny progress reinforces the desired behavior.
Enrico Caruso's mother encouraging him.
Inspiring story. His teacher said he had no voice, but his mother praised him, believed in him, worked to pay for lessons. That encouragement fueled his dream.
Charles Dickens getting his first manuscript accepted.
That praise, even without payment, apparently changed his whole life. Gave him the confidence to keep writing, saved him from a life of drudgery. Praise can be transformative.
Skinner again. Praise reinforces good behavior. Criticism kills it.
Right. Focus on what they're doing well, however small, and encourage more of it. John Ringelspaugh stopped yelling at his kids and started praising their good behavior.
And it worked better.
Much better. Georgette LeBlanc giving Marie, the dishwasher, a reputation to live up to.
Calling her this wonderful helper.
Yeah. Marie started acting like the capable, careful person LeBlanc described, gave her something positive to embody.
Bill Parker, the sales rep, turning rejection around by praising the manager.
Praised his market knowledge, made him feel important after the rejection, which made the manager reconsider. Flattery, maybe a bit, but it worked by boosting ego.
Dr. Fitzhugh praising the charwoman's thoroughness.
Led to even better work. People respond well to appreciation for their efforts.
Mrs. Hopkins turning around the problem student by calling him a leader.
Another example of giving someone a fine reputation to live up to, he started acting like the leader she said he was.
And the dance teacher's encouragement.
Even if it was just because he was paying, the encouragement, you have a natural sense of rhythm, built confidence, made him want to improve.
So warning against negative labels.
Yeah.
Calling kids or employees stupid.
Destroys motivation. Focus on potential. Frame mistakes as learning opportunities. Things that can be easily fixed with a bit more effort or a different approach.
Like Clarence Jones, helping his son overcome a learning disability.
Made learning seem achievable, broke it down, praised effort, believed in him. That encouragement was key.
So the practical tip is, be generous with encouragement, praise improvement, and make challenges seem surmountable.
Build people up, don't tear them down. Focus on their potential for success.
Chapter 7 flows right from this. Give a dog a good name, which means
give a person a fine reputation to live up to. It's essentially the same principle as praising potential, but framed as setting a positive expectation.
Tell them the positive quality you see in them or want to see.
And they'll often strive to live up to that positive label, publicly acknowledge their strengths, give them a standard to maintain.
Okay, and Chapter 8. Make the fault seem easy to correct.
Again, builds on encouragement. Don't make improvement seem like climbing Mount Everest.
That's discouraging.
Right. If you say, oh, this is easy, you just need to tweak this one little thing, it feels manageable. It inspires them to try rather than give up.
Downplay the difficulty of the fix.
Build their confidence that they can correct it easily.
Here, finally, Chapter 9. Making people glad to do what you want. How do we achieve that?
Make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest. Frame it so they see the benefit to them.
Appeal to their self-interest again, but positively.
Exactly. Woodrow Wilson talked about collaboration, understanding differences, not force. It's about finding the win-win.
John D. Rockefeller Jr.'s speech to the striking miners.
Masterful example. He didn't command or threaten. He used friendly language, emphasized shared interests, my partners, showed respect.
Made them feel heard and valued.
And they went back to work without demanding more. He made them want to cooperate by framing it positively for them.
The tenant getting a rent reduction by being friendly and appreciative.
Didn't complain. Praised the landlord, explained his own problem, can't afford it. Framed it sympathetically. Made the landlord want to help him find a solution.
Dean Woodcock, handling the upset photographer.
Explained the situation nicely, showed understanding, avoided making the photographer feel wronged, prevented bad publicity by making the photographer feel okay about the delay.
Mr. Eberson getting the customer to provide bank info.
Explained how it benefited the customer, made him feel it was in his own interest, didn't just demand it.
The hiring manager letting the candidate talk himself into the job.
Listened well, let the candidate voice concerns, and ultimately feel like he made the decision based on his own wants.
Dale Ferrier getting his son to pick up pears.
Framed it as a fun deal. Earning money versus losing it. Made the chore appealing, a game almost.
Napoleon's toys, titles, honors.
He knew how to motivate, appealed to their desire for glory, recognition. Men are ruled by toys, meaning symbols of importance.
Mrs. Gent stopping the kids damaging her lawn.
Made the ringleader a detective, gave him status, responsibility, turned him into an ally by appealing to his desire for importance.
Framing cleaning the stockroom as prepping for visitors.
Shows the benefit to the employee, showing off a good workplace rather than just giving an order. Makes the task meaningful.
So the core principle is always consider, how does this benefit them?
You make them happy about doing it by highlighting that benefit. Frame it from their perspective.
Okay, a lot of powerful leadership principles there.
Really practical stuff for anyone trying to influence positively.
So, to wrap up our deep dive for today, we've covered a huge amount, from avoiding criticism and giving sincere appreciation
To arousing eager wants, showing genuine interest, smiling, remembering names.
being a good listener, talking about their interests, making them feel important.
And then those leadership principles, starting with praise, criticizing indirectly, talking about your own mistakes.
Asking questions, letting others save face, encouraging improvement, giving a good reputation.
And finally, making people genuinely glad to do what you suggest by focusing on their benefit.
It's amazing how relevant these ideas, mostly from the 1930s, still feel today, isn't it?
Absolutely. Human nature hasn't fundamentally changed that much. These principles of empathy, respect, and understanding others' perspectives are timeless.
So, for everyone listening, the real challenge is putting this into practice. Maybe pick just one or two principles that really struck you today.
Yeah, don't try to do everything at once. Just pick one. Try it out this week. See what happens.
Consciously apply it in your conversations, your interactions. Observe the impact. It's definitely an ongoing journey, right? Learning and refining.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought to leave people with.
Go for it.
In this world that's so full of information and often seems, well, pretty self-interested, what could be the real cumulative impact if more of us consistently tried to apply these ideas? Empathy, appreciation, genuine connection in our everyday lives, at work, at home.
That's a powerful question to ponder. What kind of difference could that collective shift make?
Exactly. Something to think about.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Dale Carnegie's wisdom. We hope you found it valuable and maybe even a little inspiring.
Hope it sparks some positive changes.
Until next time, thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.